Trevor, I guess as a coach and a competitor, I mean, how excited were you for this challenge, right? I mean, the riddle that's never been solved, the guy that nobody's going to figure out. How fun is that for you to get in and say, we're going to craft a game plan to do this?
I mean, that's the ultimate. It gets me up, and those are the type of challenges I want for my athletes, you know, at the right time. And yeah, this is my purpose as a coach and as a person is to externalize the internal champion, and I feel that's what I do very well. So I'm very excited for that.
When you're making a game plan for a guy like Khabib, you know, like you've seen a lot of tape on him, right? I mean, I think people can figure out this is, I think, what it takes. But then, how do you take that game plan and craft it? I mean, do you ever go, okay, I think this is what it would take to beat him, but I'm not sure my guy can execute that. I know he can do this instead. You know what I'm saying? Like, how much do you tailor a game plan against the opponent based on what your guy can do?
Well, first off, I tailor my game plans throughout a career for a championship fight. You know, we work on fundamentals from the beginning. And one thing that I think we were able to do very well was keep our most important weapon hidden. And with Justin Gaethje, he's a extremely good wrestler, and he's got a very unique style in wrestling. And he hasn't had to use it. Again, it's very hard to go and game plan against someone's wrestling when they haven't showed it. And I always call wrestling the get out of jail card in the fight sport, because wrestling, I believe, is the most dominant position controlling piece you can have. So I feel good about that. But Khabib is the best at what he does. So it's not like I'm going, hey, we're going to go in there and just out wrestle him. It's just, again, that's just a little bonus of what we have. And again, it's just an opportunity to go out there and face the best. And I do believe Khabib, I believe he's the best pound for pound. And I've thought that for a long period of time. I mean, there's other fighters that put on exciting fights, and you can consider them best pound for pounds and who they faced and things like that. But he's just it's patterns. It's who's the most consistent. And when it comes to being consistent, that's the key to being great. It's consistency, and Khabib is that.
So in the build-up to this fight, like, Justin's been pretty open. And I don't think it's a mystery. I'm sure you guys have, you know, levels and multiple options. But he's like, I got to stay off the fence. If I'm in the center, I'm in a bad spot. Now, I think that's probably fairly common knowledge. But does it bother you at all, or worry you at all? Like, oh, Justin, don't talk about any of that. Like, don't say anything in the public.
No, not at all. I mean, this is they're both so high level. They know what each other are going to do. You know, hiding a game plan. I think coming up with game plans, that's a great thing you need to do, and we definitely come up with game plans. But in life, you come up with plans, but your plan never stays exactly how you put it. You have to have a target. You have to have a destination, and you have to be able to adjust to your plan. If you take a trip and you hit a detour, a lot of people go, oh man, plan B. And that, to me, is the worst thing you can say to someone in the corner is, oh man, we got to switch our game plan. I mean, instantly, you're clearly showing a big old sign to your athlete, we are losing, you know. And for me, it's the adjustments that we need to make. And I plant seeds. I don't put a lot of our opponents' names into my athletes' minds, because we're visual. And if I say Khabib over and over and over, he's sleeping with Khabib through training. Every night he goes to sleep, he's got that visual of Khabib. Again, we focus on winning rounds. And, I mean, that's what Justin does. Justin's a performer. One thing I do know, he's going to go out and perform. And that's all I ask. I don't go into these fights so determined to win. A lot of people always talk about, hey, man, you got to win. And to me, you can lose rounds and still win the fight. And you can lose fights and still win championships. So it's about, how do you adjust? How do you learn from things? People are like, well, you know, Khabib's, what if he takes you down? I said, that's one of the best things that can happen to us in a fight, because we'll see things. You don't know how he takes you down until he takes you down. So what we're going to do is go out there and not hesitate.
So last thing for me, I would say, especially given what you're just talking about, given the respect you have for Khabib, what's the biggest key? Is it physical tactics, or is it mental focus? Because I feel like when you watch Khabib fights, you see moments where guys break. You see it on their face, and they go, man, this dude's a little bit different. So is it physical tactics and strategy, or is it mental focus during the 25 minutes?
It's 100% mental, this fight. These guys are at the highest level. It's who can go out there and do what they do. You have to be in control of yourself to win championships, and Khabib has been the best at that. He has controlled himself throughout fights. He's had conversations with guys when he fights them. And to me, he's in control. What we got to do is take him out of control. And we're not going to sit there and force him to go out of control. We need to be in control of ourselves and not break. Khabib breaks people. And Justin Gaethje is one of those guys that, you know, he says the most craziest things. I've coached for a long period of time, and I've never had athletes say things in the way he says them. It's just like it's real. He really loves to fight. He really says, hey, man, if I die, I want to die in here. Like, that's crazy to me. And just to be real with that is honesty and truth to yourself and your self-image is key in life. And I know he's going to perform, and I know I'll be proud. And again, the outcome, I don't look into that. I look at going out there and making sure I'm on point. It's as important he needs to perform as it is for me to perform. You know, I am not here to go out there and hope he does well. I'm focused on me performing, and that's all I can control. And I trust that he's going to perform just because of his patterns.
Trevor, it would seem in a Khabib fight the worst case scenario would be you get to sort of round 3 and he's been dominant for 10 minutes. He's had you against defense on the floor for 10 minutes. Do you have an idea in mind? I know you said you don't want to go, oh, we need to switch to game plan B. But do you have an idea in mind what you can say or what you can tactically change to stop the fight getting that momentum for Khabib?
Yeah, there's so many different scenarios that go through my head with this, and different things that I've experienced in my career and things that I've failed at in my career that I've learned from. And it all comes down to the situation and the adjustments that we'll need to make. And I don't know if that's to be a coach and not just a teacher but a coach, I have to know my athlete, and I got to know how to piss him off. I got to know how to wake him up. I got to know how to cool him down and slow him down and bring him back. That's where I have to perform. And I don't know in the scenario. I've seen it over and over in my head. What Khabib does, he goes out there and breaks people. And again, I don't know what conversation, what story I'll have to bring up if we get in that situation, but I'm ready for that. And I do believe Justin is the most coachable athlete in sports. The guy is unreal. How he listens and how he can turn a friendship off and listen to anything I tell him to do. Sometimes I mess around with him, and I always talk about being coachable. I have a story, a funny story. When Shane used to work out, Shane Carwin, he'd work out with all our classmates at the gym, and he was the only athlete that did that, and he was fighting on a large scale. And I have a hula hoop drill where it's hip control, and I call it hula hoop just to kind of, bring their ego back a little bit, mess with them, like the little dog barking. And I brought in a pink hula hoop and had Shane put it on, and Shane was so coachable. And Justin, if I told him to put a hula hoop on, he would put it on and swing it around and have no care. He's so freaking coachable. By far the most coachable person I've worked with, on the sense of I almost wish he would ask more questions. He has 100% trust in me.
Khabib's fights all tend to look the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But is there one you can point at and say, from a tactical point, I've gained the most out of watching this fight? If it be Poirier, Conor, T-Bow, is there one in his catalogue that you've looked at and thought, okay, I've seen something in this I can take away? Which fight would that be?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ones. Al Quinta taking a fight on when he had 4 fights. I was on that card with Rose and Joanna. There's 4 fights that fell through that week. And I remember them changing all the posters, and I felt so bad for the UFC crew just adjusting these posters. I'm like, gosh, there's so much work that goes into this. And he was adjusting, game plans in his head, I'm guessing, and going, oh my God, this guy. And he went out and wrestled, and Khabib made an adjustment and went to a jab and started looking, I'm going to say Muhammad Ali just because it didn't look like Muhammad Ali, but from Khabib going from wrestling to that, I was like, damn, he went to Muhammad Ali. He was on his feet, he was backing up and throwing jabs. So, I mean, there's so many different patterns in what he does so well. He's very good at adjusting, and he's greatness. He's a guy who is going to be the toughest to break, the toughest to make adjustments to, and with the little adjustments he's made, he's been consistent. So I've seen all sorts. I've seen him get rocked. I've seen him get rocked and stay so composed while he's rocked. He knows how to move his feet when he's rocked and pull you in and get you to pressure him so he can close the gap easy. I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, there's so many different fights. I see a little bit different in each fight he fights.
The last thing for me, a lot of the conversation about this fight has been, will Justin break? Will Justin break? And I feel that no one's ever sort of been able to test Khabib's mentality. If Khabib can't take you down, is there a possibility he breaks? If he gets rocked and he's unable to get it to the ground, is there a chance that he starts to break?
Yep. I believe anybody in the world is breakable. And again, it's 90% of the time not. I mean, the athlete you're facing is a big part of breaking you, but your biggest opponent is yourself and the conversation that's going on in your head. And when you lose fights, most of the time you lose to yourself. And when you can look at an athlete and athletes that are truthful with themselves, they can be like, I could have did this, I could have did that. But you know the flags in your head where you're like, you start to pull back, you start to hesitate, you start to think, when's the round over? Those type of thoughts where you're thinking, past or future. You're not present. And, again, anybody's breakable.
Trevor, we've spoken with Justin over the years, and there were points where he would say, I care more about fighting Khabib than for the belt, because I would assume he's in agreement that he believes to be the best fighter in the world. So how far back can you remember of Justin, kind of targeting this Khabib before he got the belt?
For a while, he did a little weight cut with them, and Justin was in the World Series. And after he helped him out, he's like, I want to fight that guy. Not out of disrespect, but he's like, he's that freaking good. And Justin loves the step-up competition. He likes to get scared. He's a guy that I always have to pull back when we go out and do things because he just loves fear. He loves things that scare him. It just gets him up. And, he's one of those guys that I think he's been looking at Khabib for a long period of time. He wants to fight the best all the time.
And how would you compare the build-up, I guess, in preparation, not outside of the pandemic, to when Rose fought Joanna? Joanna was undefeated. Everyone thought she was the greatest female fighter of all time. How would you compare the two, the builds for these two fights?
I think very similar outside of the trash talk. I think it'd be easier if Khabib trash talked. I really do, depending on who it is. But that makes you want to get up and fight more. I mean, I think the best athletes out there don't show anything, where they're not going to give you signs. I think Khabib's smart enough to go, hey, is Justin talking about his game plan because he's going to change it up on me? It's again, this is chess. And am I being played is what's going on through these athletes' head. I think that's the cool part about these high-level fights. Was Rose scared in the Joanna fight going in there when she was being bullied and being talked down and having that aggressiveness of Joanna? Oh yeah, she was scared. But one thing is a fear will produce tunnel vision. George St. Pierre used to be like, never again, never sign a contract. He feared fighting, but he would run to the cage. I mean, that's something special. So, fear is one of those things that turns you on and gets you fired up. That's why a lot of people fight differently than they spar, because there's that true fear. There's realness to it. And, Justin, says he's willing to die in there. And I think he's truthful with himself, that's saying, hey, if I didn't have a coach that would be willing to stop the fight, he would go and tell. And he had said something that was super funny. He said, I don't think someone would kill me. He goes, I think I'd kill myself. I pushed my heart rate to that point, and I just laughed at that. It's just super unique. But yes, those two fights are similar in that sense, but so much different.
Khabib himself has said, obviously wrestling is his thing, but how much do you pay attention to his striking, considering?
His striking is wonderful. A lot of people don't understand his striking, and when he was talking about a Mayweather fight, does he go out there and outbox Mayweather? No, I think Conor does better in a boxing match than Khabib. But when you add wrestling to it, his striking's great. His feints and his level changes and his offbeat and things is super unique. So I think his striking is you have to have it all at this level. He's definitely great in one area, but I think he's really, really, really good in every other area.
inspirational speech before Justin goes out there?
I go off feeling 100%. It's always present. I don't plan that. I go through scenarios in my head where, I have to challenge myself, and I'm just going through experiences where I failed and go, man, I've got to be prepared for that. Instances of forgetting mouthpieces in corners and just stupid stuff. I failed so much as a coach. I go off the energy in the room and what I'm feeling, and I feel like if I'm present, again, game plans are seed. I call them seeds that are planted. I've got to plant seeds, and I've got to be able to connect to that seed at the time when it's needed. And I don't go in there saying, I'm going to have this talk and I'm going to bring up this story. Not at all. I have to go off the whim, and I've got to be able to make an adjustment in the moment. But that's just an obsession of scenarios and experience, I would say.
Saturday morning when you meet up with Justin, what's the schedule going to be like? What's the fight day process for something like this to make sure he is in the zone when he makes that walk?
I would say a whole bunch of dumb dad jokes. I carry a weird environment. I try to make it fun, and my goal is to keep him not focused on the fight until we're in there, especially when it's last 3 days of fight week, because that's where their pupils start to open. They start to get really turned on, and I've got to pull that back and keep that catered. So I do a lot of stupid jokes, and I call it the light in Men in Black, when they zap them and it's like, what just happened? Anytime I see them start to overthink something, it's like I got to bring them back, and I dumbify them. Maybe you could say it that way, where I make them go, what was I just freaking thinking,
We've got a minute. What's your go-to dad joke?
Let's think of one real quick. Why is everybody in, what would I say? I got to pull one that I made up. So if you're in Europe and you're sitting on a bench, and I'm making this one off the whim. If you're in Europe and you're sitting on a bench, what are you?
I don't know.
European sitting down. That's dumb. See, that's off the whim. You got to come up with stuff that I see like three of you shake their head. And, Nate Marquardt was the best. He squinted his eyes and go. He felt bad for me. I don't claim to be funny at all. Not at all. I make people dumber.
Trevor, just lastly,
yes.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the redesign or your redesign of the mixed martial arts glove?
Yep.
And what makes it so different to the UFC glove?
So the UFC glove is a great glove. It's the first glove that really came out that's the same pattern. It's the Wano glove outside of the skirt is gone. The skirt was a piece on the inside that Shane Carwin and we actually had to cut into in Las Vegas when we were fighting Gonzaga. They had a 4X glove, and we had to cut into it, and I was just blown away that the commission allowed us to use scissors to get his hand in the glove. And then Don House ended up creating another strap. But to me, I call it a gardening glove. It's got finger holes that your hand goes through, and it causes your hand to be in this position. I mean, it works. It's been functional for a long period of time, but this sport has evolved so much, and I'm always rethinking things. And being injured as a coach is why I started what I'm doing, and I've seen all the issues with finger pokes and mainly hands being hurt. And when you can't make a true fist, that's how you hurt your hands. And I look at performance like people pay money to watch fights. And when you're paying big money to watch a fight, it's about, hey, if I pay $60 for a pay-per-view and someone breaks their hand and doesn't know it, that pulls the performance back. If my hands are worn down from gripping and squeezing, I always say when you watch a guy's fight, it's either their hands are here or they're squeezed all the way and they're white-knuckled. I produce a glove that's more in a position like this. If you look at like boxing hand wraps, they force your hand in this position where even if I hit here, my strong bones are lined up instead of in a position here where I'm hitting with my door donkey knuckles. And the straps are internal. And I talked to the UFC for 2 years, and they were interested. Dana was really, really interested. But coming into a deal, I want to be with the UFC first, mainly Dana first, because I think he's the creator of MMA and brought MMA into what it was. So it's a respect for Dana. And I'd like to get a deal done with Dana, but it's the strapping system and technology goes with all my equipment. I'm not ready to give up my company and I want to help all mixed martial arts, but I'd love to start with Dana. And I think we'll get to some. I actually have a couple prototypes that I redesigned a new technology that's outside of my technology. So hopefully I'll get some time with him, and I know he's busy. But my focus right now is Justin Gaethje, and my goal is to help every athlete out there that goes out there and inspires the world. I mean, fighting right now is I think, helping so many people deal with COVID and what's going on. And life is a fight. And once you fight, you realize that when you stop fighting, it's still a fight for all of us. So we're all fighters, and fighters inspire us. So I want to help all fighters, and hopefully I can help not stop finger pokes, maybe help a little bit.